Welcome to this week's Talk About It. I decided to bring an old friend of mine, not the fact that he's old, but we've been at this a time or two. Sheriff Brian Thomas, Potter County Sheriff. I was sitting here thinking about who I wanted to bring on this episode, and I know we're right in the middle of this huge campaign to raise money for our first responders memorial. And I started thinking back to, I don't even know if you remember this, but I did a story about your daughter. I don't know. It may have been 20 years ago.
Probably, yes.
When she was going through her ordeal, and
Yep.
that was when I really got to know you and your wife. I went out to her elementary school. Was it Rolling Hills? No, it was.
Probably at the house.
Yeah.
She didn't even go to school.
Yeah, that's right.
She didn't go to school till she was in 6th grade. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that was a long time ago.
It was a minute ago. She's doing well. I saw both of your daughters. We got a teacher, right?
She's a teacher and loves what she does, and still has her little monthly IVs that she has to do, and still has that problem. Will always have that problem,
Yeah.
but she strives, and it's never slowed her down. She just keeps on going. The other one's a nurse here in town, RN. So
Yeah. Well, she was a fighter, and so are you. And we're going to dive into all that over the next 30 or so minutes. And then I think at the end of the day, we're going to roll back to find out how you guys can be a part of this wonderful opportunity to raise money to make sure that our first responders are being remembered. And there's this great project that's happening in downtown Amarillo. I'll give you all the specifics about that in just a minute. What got you to law enforcement, Brian?
You know, I was that kid that always wanted to grow up and be a cop.
Mm-hmm.
Don't know why. Have no policemen in my family that I knew of at the time. My dad, my grandfather had a trucking business, and that was the only thing my dad ever told me, that I wasn't going into the trucking business.
That was it.
He said I didn't care what I did, but I wasn't going into the trucking business. So I mean, I worked a lot of fast food restaurants for years.
Yeah.
In fact, I worked at the Long John Silver's, not the one that just came back, but right down the street. I worked at all of the Long John Silver's here in Amarillo. I worked
Really?
at the one in Borger. I worked at the one in Pampa. I worked at one in Plainview. Just kind of worked my way around. And when I quit there, I was working at the one on Paramount, and I was an assistant manager, and they were ready to give me that store as a
How old were
manager.
you at this point? Let me just cut in.
I was 22.
So you're 22. You're captaining your own boat over there on Paramount, which would later become Tyler's Barbecue, the original Tyler's
Yeah.
Barbecue that started out over there.
Yeah.
And what happened?
Yeah, I put in for the police department, and there to go to work for them. Of course, you have to take this civil service test.
Mm-hmm.
And I will never forget going into the Civic Center, and we had probably 600 people in there.
600
And-
taking this test?
Yep, and there was 35 positions. And so
And what year is this at this point?
this is in 21, I believe is when that was. And so you go over there, and I mean, it's...
No, hold on. What year? This was...
that was in 85.
85. Okay. So you're at the Civic Center. You're thinking, I want to do this thing. It's full of people, and you guys are going after it.
Saturday morning, and I mean, they're asking you. I mean, it's just, I'm like, I don't have a clue.
Yeah.
I mean, it really did. I mean, and we had a certain time limit. I want to say it was an hour, but it may have been 2. But you sat there and you took that test, and they graded those tests, and it depending on where you fell, as if you were in the top, because at that time they were only hiring, I think they were hiring 15.
Okay.
And so I didn't quite make the cut, and
Okay.
I was disappointed, but that was good for a year. And so they hired those, they put them through the academy, and they had a mass retiring, and there were like 10 people that retired. And so instead of having to have another test, our test was still good. And so they called 8 of us back in to start another academy, and I happened to be in that academy.
Back in 1985.
There was only 8 of us in that class, so it was that was in '86, and
Okay.
so there was 8 of us in that class. Loved what I did. I mean, again, don't ask me why. It's just what I wanted to do.
And you grew up here.
I did. Grew up in Amarillo.
Where'd you
all my
graduate
life.
from?
I went to Amarillo High. I didn't graduate from Amarillo High. We all have our little issues with that we went through, and I moved to the Dallas-Fort Worth area, and then I went to. I actually graduated from Decatur or Denton.
Denton.
No, it wasn't Denton. What was it? It was a small town down there.
Yeah.
Gosh,
You
I
grew up
forgot
here
to
for the
say.
most part.
But
And you
for
kind
the
of
most
down
part,
there.
yeah.
and
I
you
still, I left my senior year and went down there. I still say I graduated from Amarillo High, even though I didn't get the paper from there.
Yeah.
Cedar Hill is where I went. Sorry.
Okay.
And so went down there, graduated, and walked across the stage and turned around and came back home. I needed my mom and dad.
Yeah.
And my dad. And so came back, just started trying to find a job,
Yeah.
And like I said, I worked for Long John Silver's for several years. And they were fixing to offer me the manager position there
Right.
at the one on Paramount. About the same time the PD called. And I
Yeah.
said, sorry, I'm out.
I'm leaving the fish roll. I'm curious, and we'll get kind of back to the meat of the story, so to speak. But when they reopened, did you like go down memory lane and be like, I'm gonna go get some?
I really wanted to, but every time I went by there, the line was on the other side of Fulton. I was like, nope. And even now, we still go by there, and I was, God, I want to go over there and try it, but
Every time I've gone by, there's been a line because I drop off my oldest daughter Maisie goes to Amarillo High. She's a freshman over there. But every time I see that line, I'm just like, what in the world? We couldn't sustain one, and now everybody can't get enough of it. So
the lines that I had when we worked there, I worked at the one on Pierce Street, and I would work usually on Fridays up there, and or I'd have to go fill in over there. But during Lent, it was nothing for us to have a line inside that restaurant all the way out the door. It went down to Buchanan and went all the way back to Pierce Street and started down Pierce Street.
You're kidding.
That started at 5 o'clock, and it was there until about 9:30
During Lent.
During Lent on Friday nights. It was crazy.
I think
Ross was just as bad, but it never seemed to go that far down the road.
Right.
It was crazy.
I think the last time I ate at a Long John Silver's, it would have been, let's see, I've been married 20 years. It was probably 24 years ago, and it was in Wichita Falls.
Yeah.
I'm like you. I'm gonna end up going back. So you go in, you automatically fall in love with this, and this was you get your badge and everything in '86.
I loved it, and I started out on midnights. Of course, they put you through all those shifts, and then I started out on evenings. Actually, I loved it. 4 to midnight, loved it. Greatest thing in the world. Still be there. Met my wife, and she said, "Well, if you want to have children, you'll go to days."
You said, "Yes, ma'am."
Yes, ma'am. And so I did. I did go to days. I enjoyed it, but it wasn't evenings, And I got into all crazy things in the field, and just the things that I've done, and dealt with is just phenomenal. But I got over there on days. I stayed on days for a little bit, and then one of the school resources that I want to say that was when they expanded into to the middle schools.
Okay.
And so I applied for that, and I became an SRO at Sam Houston and at Austin. So I split my time between the week there. And then the Jerry Newfield, was working at Tascosa, and he left and went down to the office, and so I took over his spot at Tascosa. I worked in the schools for 6 years. I loved it. And to this day, I still run across the kids that I had. Yeah. And it's amazing to see and watch them. Andrew Mitchell's one of them that was one of my good kids, and he was such a leader in school with the football team and everything, and to watch that and to see where he's at now, and some of the other ones. And it's really funny because we'll be out somewhere and somebody will, "Hey, OT," because that's what they all called me. And I'll, "Hey, how are you doing?" Blah, blah, blah. My wife will go, "Who was that?" And I said, "I have no idea, but it was a kid from school." Because
OT.
That was the only thing they called me. So I always know when somebody calls me OT, it was one of my kids from school. Gosh darn, we had 2,000 there plus the 2 middle schools. We had a ton of kids. And, and I didn't pick on just Andrew. We had, Tolware was one of my kids over there, all the Ware kids. We just had a great group of kids.
Was there something along that way where, obviously you took the exam and everything, and that all
Right.
happened in '86. Was there something that happened in that time where you're like, this is at what point did you, I know you wanted to do it, at what point did you fall in love with it? Was there this cathartic moment where you say, I'm right where God wants me to be?
From day one.
Day one, it was
Day
there.
one. I loved what I was doing. I wanted to serve people, and I loved that.
Okay.
Then we won't go into the part of the sheriff part of it, but I had lots of people telling me to run for sheriff. I had no desire to be a sheriff.
Because of the politics
Yes.
involved, because you have to get out there and you're like,
Yes.
I'm serving and protecting right now.
I love my job.
Okay.
I had a great job, and I mean, lots and lots of people came up to me and said, "You need to run for sheriff." And
This was in what year?
this was because I came in, gosh, 2000. I'm 16. I've been there 16 years, so.
Yeah. So who was the sheriff at that time?
That would have been Shoemate.
Yeah. So Shoemate was there, and he kind of followed the same path. He was at
Right.
APD. I remember
Yes.
dealing with Sheriff Shoemate in a couple of things, and so you decide, you talk this over with your wife, and you're like,
Well, I'll tell you. I mean, I got told by several people, "You need to run for sheriff. You'd be a great sheriff." Blah blah blah. And I will never. I'm not going to sugarcoat anything. I deeply believe in Christ, and I prayed about it.
yeah.
I said, "Okay, Jesus, if this is what I'm supposed to do, give me a sign."
As those of us in this faith do, sometime
Show me this is what I'm supposed to do. So, and I've told this story many times, but so I went to the post office the very next day, where I went every day at the same time to go pick up my mail because I was working Crime Stoppers at that time.
that's where we really got to know each
Yes.
other is during that period. Yeah.
And so this guy was coming out, and I was going in, and he stopped, and he goes, "Hey, you're that Crime Stopper guy." And I said, "Yes, sir, I am." And he goes, and we talked, just nice to meet you, blah, blah, blah.
This random guy.
And I turn around to go back in, and he goes, "You know what? You need to run for sheriff. You'd be a great sheriff." Never met the guy in my life. I went to the post office. I went in, got my stuff, sat down in the truck, and I said, "Okay, God, I get it. You can put the 2 before down."
Yeah.
I said, "I got it. I'm supposed to do that." I went to that post office every day at the same time. I never saw the guy again. To this day, I've never seen that guy before again. Ever.
Just some random guy saying.
Some random guy
need to
telling
run
me,
for sheriff.
and the day after I prayed, show me a sign. God showed me a sign.
So what was that like running that first time? Because there was,
Oh, I was scared to death.
and I can't remember who all was in that race, but it was,
There was 6.
yeah, there was a lot.
Yes. And I mean, I was like scared to death. I've never run for an office like that. I mean, you got to go out and raise money. You got to do all this. I remember my dad helped me a lot because he had a lot of influential people that helped me and that he was friends with. And I remember getting there was a lady I worked with at Tascosa, and she goes, "Hey, my dad wants to talk to you." I said, "Okay." I had no idea who her dad was. And I was like, "Okay." She goes, "You need to be at his house tomorrow at this time." She goes, "Don't go in the front house, go to the back. There's a barn back there, and just go knock on the door." Okay, so I'm going over there.
This clandestine meeting here.
Yeah, I'm nervous as all get out. Well, it was a really nice house, and I go up there and, "Come in." I was like, "Okay." So I walk in there, and I recognize the guy, right? And I'm like, he goes, "Well, I just got some questions for you." I said, "You want to run for sheriff?" And I said, "Well, yes, sir. I think I'm going to try to do that." And he goes, "Tell me what you want to do. Why you want to run?" So we sat there and talked for about 45 minutes. And he goes, "Okay, you can leave now." I mean, that was the way he dismissed me. "You can leave now." I'm like, "Okay." So I get up and I leave and I go back and I'm thinking, I don't know if I
What
did
just
good,
happened?
bad,
Yeah.
or what.
Yeah.
So the next day I'm at school, or I was back at Crime Stoppers by then, and he called me and he goes, "Hey, I'm gonna take you to lunch today." I said, "Okay." He said, "Meet me at 11 o'clock at whatever place it was." And I said, "Okay, yes, sir." So I'm sitting there, and I mean, I'm nervous, right? I am so nervous. And I see him pull up, so I get out of my car, and I walk up there. And he walks inside, and he goes, "We're waiting on a few other people." And I said, "Oh, gosh. Okay." And so, I mean, within 5 minutes, I'm surrounded by movers and shakers of Amarillo, Texas. I mean, I am flipping out. I didn't eat because I knew if I ate something, I was going to throw up.
Yeah.
And they all sat around and asked me questions. And I remember one of them, he looks at his watch and he goes, I got to go back to work. Yeah, me too. And so they all got up and walked out. And I'm like, but as they were walking out, each one of them stood up and handed me a check for $500, every one of those men. And I mean, I'm just sitting there going, wow. And I walked outside and I called my wife and I said, you're not going to believe what happened. And she goes, well, what? And I told her, and she goes, I said, I'm sitting here looking at $2,500. And she's like, you're kidding me. I said, no, I'm not. And I said, and I told her some of the names, and she goes, you met with all of those? And I said, yes. And I said, very, very weird.
That was your introduction into running for public office.
Man, it was. And so then we had the election. There was 5 of us in the Republican race. Myself and another one, we didn't get the 50%, so we had to have a runoff.
I remember that.
And I'm like, oh gosh. I mean,
you got to go back into it again.
And out of all of those that were running, I was the only one that was working still full time. And so everybody told me, you're never going to win if you don't go out and knock on doors. I said, okay. So back to my daughter, she was homebound with teaching, and so the lady across the street, we paid her she quit working her job, and we paid her what she was making to keep her. And so I went over one day and I said, you want to go with Daddy tomorrow and go knock on doors and put up my little door hangers? She goes, yeah, Daddy, let's go. We knocked on 4 doors, and then she goes, Daddy, I don't feel good. So we ended up leaving. So,
and that's with her condition. That's just the way it is.
Yeah,
I mean,
when it was just, you just never knew when
it's
she
good
was
when it's
gonna
good,
have a
and
day.
it's bad when it's bad.
And so, for people to tell me, and I'm not telling anybody, I don't suggest this, but they always tell you got to knock doors, or you're never going to win anything. And we knocked 4 doors. That was it.
And you won.
I had a very, very helpful Sunday school class that helped me. We typed up letters. We had a guy that worked for a company that printed all these letters, and we sat around and bought pizza, and we all folded letters and we mailed them. They helped me go out and put signs up. One blew down, they'd go put up another one.
And this is in what year? Give me the time frame here. So you're just now starting this past year you started your fifth
term.
Fifth term.
Right.
Yeah.
So go back 8 years or what? 4, 8.
I do broadcasting because math isn't it for me.
Math is not. You didn't tell me what I was going to have to answer questions on.
Yeah.
So I mean, go back. I believe I started in 2009 is when I started the sheriff's office. So it was in 2008, and so we went around and I mean we mailed all those out. Had to go through a runoff because we didn't get the 50%. Ended up winning that, and I mean I'm like freaking out. I'm like going, there's one more. Well, that person had already run twice and didn't win, and so he changed. And this is the story I heard was he changed to the Democrat just so he could make it to November, right? And I'm like, oh wow, that's weird.
I can't remember the name, but I think I know, but I don't want to say it.
Yeah. Anyway, we'll talk after we get off here. And so I'm like, and I got accused that I was only doing it for the money. I had no idea what the sheriff's office paid.
Yeah.
And I will never forget, I was sitting there watching the news one day, and my wife was in there cooking. And they had a news story on, and they were comparing the salaries between Randall County Sheriff and the Potter County Sheriff. It's the first time I ever saw the salary. I tell that to a lot of people, and they're like, oh, bull. And I said, no, I really never, that wasn't what I was running. And it popped up on the screen, and I'm beating on the side of my chair. I couldn't even talk to her. I'm like, honey, and she comes around, what? And she comes around the corner, and I like, look. And that was the very first time I even knew what this paid. I was, when I got elected, I knew that I knew they had issues over there at the sheriff's office. I knew I didn't know anybody there, so I needed to find somebody that I could trust. So I reached out to Roger Short. Good friend of mine, worked for Randall County. I said, hey, I called him up and I said, hey, I got a question for you. And he goes, sure, what's your name? I said, I want to know if you'll come and be my chief deputy. Phone just went silent. I don't know about that. I'm going to have to think about this one.
Yeah.
And it was probably a week before he called me back. And he goes, okay, after a lot of prayer, he goes, I'll do it.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget. And then, so we went to swear in on January 1st, and we did it at my church, and we could barely fit everybody in the loft. And so we had to go into another room just to take another big picture of everybody. And so we left there and we went to the office. It's the first time he'd ever stepped in the office when we were still downtown. And he walked in there and he goes, because they just built their new office. He goes, maybe I should have come in here and looked before I said yes. I mean, it was that bad. But I needed somebody that I could trust, and I knew that knew sheriff stuff.
Yeah.
Because everybody that was there was worried about me coming from the same police department and the same position as the previous sheriff.
Yeah.
And
there was some trepidation there.
Yes, and it was they weren't really excited about it, and so we got through all of that. It took us a while, and then Roger stayed around for, I think he was all the way into my second term, maybe third term, before he finally said, okay. He walked into my office one day, and he goes, hey, shuts my door, and he goes, hey, let me see your gun. Well, he's a big gun nut,
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, here you go. And he goes, okay. He goes, puts it under his leg, and I'm like, what are you doing? He goes, well, I just wanted to let you know that I'm going to retire. He's taking my gun away.
Yeah.
I said, what are you doing? He goes, well, I didn't want you to shoot me.
Well, he's just covering his bases.
Yeah.
Covering his bases.
I've been so blessed by the people that we have in my office. I love what I do. I love my staff. I could be that guy where I didn't have to go to work and it would still get done.
Yeah.
But that's just not me. I get up at 4:30 every morning and I'm at work by 5:30, and that gives me my time to do my Bible work and also get all of the hundreds of emails out of my inbox.
Yeah.
And by the time I get all that done, then people start showing up. Right. And then I leave about 3:30 or 4, just like everybody else does. But I just absolutely love what I do. And I have the best department ever.
So here you are, you're sheriff of Potter County, and a couple of years ago you decided, I'm going to go back to school.
I did.
That was, I remember seeing the pictures of that. You were proud about that. Yes. I mean, your wife, I know your wife had her diploma, your two girls had their diplomas. And so at the end of the day, what was it where you said, I'm just going to do it?
I got a call or I got an email or something that says, hey, you need to look at this. Maybe you can finish up. And so I called the guy over at Amarillo College, and he goes, well, you're in law enforcement. Your career counts for this many. He goes, dude, you only have 6 hours. And
all right, let's go.
I was like, okay. So, the three of the classes were all online.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, I can do this. And I had to take a math class. Math was not my forte, as you can tell by
hey, I'm with
what
you.
day was that?
I'm with you.
And so I had to do an in-class math class. So worked all day, then I went to class in the evening. I was not the brightest kid as far as school goes. In fact, my kids they found my report cards from school one time, and Dad, what is this duh?
Yeah.
But I worked really hard because I wanted to show people never give up. Yeah. You can always do what you put your mind to do, and that was one of the things that I preached at work. Yeah. And I went back and I took those 6 hours of class, and it was 4 classes, and I came out of there with 4.0. Yeah. And so it just made me feel good because I accomplished something and I got it done, and I wanted to make my family proud of me for doing what I'd done. And like I said, both my girls were there cheering me on. Both of them have been through school, and we wouldn't let them quit. And so Dad's going to go back and give it a shot. So here we are.
So feeling good about that, I want to just touch on this as far as you want to touch on it. You've had some battles that you've had to go through.
I did. I had colon cancer almost 11 years ago now. Didn't really know what it was. Went in, had a colonoscopy. I don't ever remember coming out of that colonoscopy. I never heard the doctor tell my wife that, just your run-of-the-mill colon cancer, he needs to go see a surgeon. I never heard that conversation. All I knew was that we had to go to the surgeon the next day. And I walk in there and we're sitting there, and that was the first time I'd heard the word cancer. And it was my daughter's 21st birthday. And they had a big deal planned for that night. And I, being the smart aleck that I am, I looked at her and says, "Hey, I got you colon cancer for your birthday." Shut up, Dad. That's not even funny.
But in those hard times, we use humor a lot of times to try to help get us through something we can't understand.
I can sit there and bawl about it, or whatever, or throw a big fit. But why? I mean, it's already there. It's done. I mean, that's part of what God's plan for me was, right? And so we got through that. I went through chemo. I went once a week, and I'm here to tell you, man, rough. And there were several times I told my wife, I said, "I ain't going back." But there was a lady there that was the inspiration for me for that. That lady had almost every kind of cancer you could think of. She had been fighting cancer for 30 years. And she was in there taking chemo every time I went, and just a smile on her face.
Yeah.
And I told my wife one day, I said, "If that lady can do it, I can do 10 treatments. I mean, come on." So I would go in, get the treatment, and then I had to carry a little pill. It looked like a pill bottle, but it was the other half of the chemo for the next day and a half. So I wore that to work with me. But I thought that she was my inspiration. And my wife knew her. She worked with her out at the plant. And so it was just, wow, I can do this. And so we've been through that. Everybody looked at me and went, "Golly, you've lost a lot of weight." And I said, "Yeah, I don't suggest the diet plan. It was cancer because I lost a lot of weight when I did it." And
I mean, you lost
I
70?
was my highest weight was 324. And I'm down to about 230 now. So of course, now it's diabetes and taking all that kind of medicine too, and it's helped. But yeah, for that cancer stuff, I lost about 100 pounds. And
you were also able to lean back on all of the health stuff that you had to go through with your daughter.
yes,
And
that was the other inspiration. I mean, I sat there and watched that kid from the time she was born till now. I mean, she still does that, and she never really complained. Never complained.
yeah.
She had to take an IV that took all day when she was a child. I have to praise Dr. Young. Dr. Young took care of her, and he wouldn't let her go anywhere but to his office. He wanted her right there.
Is this Rodney?
John Young.
John Young, okay.
And he would make us go there every month for her infusion. He wanted to have her where he could watch her every day. So I always went with her, and I sat there with her the whole time. And we did that until she got a little older. Then we could start doing it at the house, and he felt a little better about it. But it was just all the people that were surrounded us with that. And, she never complained.
Yeah.
Not once. Even to this day, she doesn't complain. She still has to take this IV. It's a lot faster now. It didn't take the whole day. Now it takes, a little bit here, and they can get it done in 2 days with an hour time frame. But I'll never forget when we first, of course, the start of all of that, she had heart problems and lung problems, and we had to fly her to, when she was 10 weeks old, we had to fly down to Dallas, and she had to have open heart surgery to fix her heart. And then she still has a left lung it's an isolated, it doesn't do anything but collect blood and pool blood in her lung. So it doesn't function, which is the other part of the issue with all of this stuff that she had. But it's never slowed her down. She just gets ups and goes. And I'll never forget the guy came in to give us her first medicine when we were still in Dallas, and he handed me a bag about the size of your little notebook there, about this bag, and he goes, "Here, ever held $75,000 before?" And I'm like going, "Oh my God, no, okay, here, you have it back." And so, thank goodness my wife had great insurance. She worked out at Pantex for years and years, and so we had good medical coverage, and I'll never forget that. And so, probably about the time she turned 26, here about 2 years ago, And so we couldn't carry her on her insurance anymore, right? And she'd already gotten married, and thank God her husband has the same insurance company that my wife had. But I will never forget, my wife goes, well, I can't carry on my insurance anymore, so I might as well retire. 4 days later, she was gone.
That was it.
She said that was the only reason why I worked.
I'm curious, Sheriff Thomas, in what when you went through that cancer part, what is the thing that you learned most about who you are in that fight?
You know, things happen, but if you want to focus on the negative part of it, you can, and it'll eat you alive. Yeah. Or you can face it head on, let's move forward, and let's keep going. You know, I mean, I was still working, you know. I had a job I had to go do. I couldn't just, whatever. You know, you still had to go through all of that. And so I would come to work with my little pill bottle underneath my shirt or carried it in my pocket, you know, but you still had people. I have 244 people, at that time 246 people that were counting on me to be there. I wasn't going to just leave it. Yeah, there was that morning time, and usually that day I would take off, but the rest of the time I still had to get to work. You know, you got to go. And so, and I say that in this position, I don't have to go. You know,
But you do.
If you really wanted to, I mean, as an elected official, you got to work one day a year. That's not me. That was never me. My dad didn't raise me that way. My family didn't raise me that way. So, by golly, I'm going to stand up and we're going to do what we got to do.
So here you are. You fought colon cancer. You go back to school. You are starting your fifth.
I'm starting my 5th term. When I finish this term, I will be the longest running sheriff of Potter County out of 25 sheriffs.
That's impressive.
Yeah, it really is.
I think what also is impressive, the fact that you've taken on kind of a new project, so to speak. You and a wonderful group of people have decided that it is long past time to honor our first responders here on the High Plains with this First Responders Memorial that you guys have planned in downtown Amarillo. I've seen the plans. I'm just going to kind of bring this up just a little bit.
It's gorgeous.
It's what you guys are doing here is really incredible. Tell me kind of how this kind of came about.
Well, this was a Wendy Swope thing.
Yeah, I've known Wendy. We've been dear friends for a long time. As a matter of fact, I brought her into the studio and we talked a little bit about it.
Her and I go way back when I was a Crime Stopper guy. She was one of my kids on our Crime Stoppers. She came over to the adult Crime Stoppers.
Was she at Tascosa when you were?
She was,
yeah.
And she's just, I mean, she is just a flat doll. And I consider her one of my daughters. I mean, mess with Wendy and you got the sheriff coming after you, I promise you.
I wouldn't mess with Wendy anyway because Wendy can hold her own.
She could, and she could. But we just became, I mean, she was just so special. And I'll never forget, you know, you go to this site for the law enforcement thing.
I mean, I've got it up on the page right now that it just has. And I think when she showed me this, I was pretty shocked in that we have this many people that I mean, here's the start of the list, as you see there, and we just are going to scroll down, and we just keep going. These are all first responders, whether it's a constable or fireman. I mean,
EMS,
just one from not too long ago, the Zeb Smith, the chief of the Fridge Fire Department. We have all of these, and inside these each one of these people have their own remarkable story about their service to our community. I know that Wendy shared with me probably one of the crazier stories that I've heard on there. And I think that's one of the things I love about this program is not only are you guys are going to have their names, but you're collecting these stories.
Yes. And what I love about it now, where Wendy got this notion, I have no idea. You know, of course, she's been through her trials too, and I was there for her when that happened, and it was devastating.
You were there on day one. I do remember that.
And it still brings tears to my eyes because we went out to that accident scene, and I'm talking about that.
Yeah.
And we were standing out there for 3 hours because we had Newman's Highway shut down. We didn't have a clue. And somebody came up and told me who it was. And I mean, I jumped in my truck and I drove as fast as I could up to where the scene was. And they were just fixing to go back and make a notification to her. And so I said, well, I'm going with you. I said, y'all aren't going without me. So I went with them. We got there to her office. We knocked on the door and she opened the door and she goes, no. She already knew where he was going. She'd already heard there was an accident, and she had been calling and knew that he wouldn't answer the phone. And, I mean, talked about break your heart. I mean, it just absolutely crushed me. And I tell that story because the Friends of AJ Swope are the ones that started this first responder memorial as well. And there are so many people that have been responsible. You showed that list of names. I mean, they've done all that research. I had no idea that Valero had lost so many people in a big fire up there. And there's a bunch of them listed on there from up there in Sunray. Well, that's where that was. And the policemen we've lost. And there was another one. In fact, she just sent an email to the board yesterday, asking about, there was one from Perryton who they've requested to have their name added because they were exposed to COVID. And so we have another one that, died of COVID back in the day with all this stuff. And so I think what I love about this is if you have somebody that dies in law enforcement, there's a big memorial down in Austin. There's several of them. If you have a sheriff, they have a deal at the Sheriff's Association, but they also have one at the Capitol for the lost officers and stuff. But what I love about this is those people that are here from the Panhandle that serve the Panhandle. That's a long way to go. Yeah. So now we have the people that we want to honor, and now their families can come right down here to downtown Amarillo. Instead of having driving all the way to Austin or flying to Austin to go just remember their people. Not that they can remember them without a memorial, but this place is going to be so beautiful to sit there and just have a lunch, have a Coke.
And anybody can donate to this thing.
Yes.
And you guys have, I think at last check on the news, and I know it's probably more since then, I think it was around $850,000. Yes. We're trying to get to 150. We're trying to get to that $1 million mark. And every little bit helps. We've got, I brought this up between us, if you can kind of see that.
Sure.
If you go over to the Texas Panhandle First Responders Memorial.org, and there's a little bit of information on how you can make a donation, some of the tax information. But as Brian said, as Sheriff Thomas said, it's the Friends of AJ Swope helping to make this happen. It is a worthwhile cause. And again, we just...
the big push right now is, and thank you for all of y'all's help, and also your parent company who made a big donation as well.
We believe in it. We live here. I think a lot of people think, these are our friends. These are these are people in our community. These are people who take care of us. And so for us, our job is to do the news and to bring you the stories. But these are things that sometimes impact, it far exceeds, I think, the normal thing. And so we believe in it. And
so they started this push to raise $150,000 by the first responder, or it's the Memorial Day, Law Enforcement Memorial Day of October the 28th. And so that's what the big push was for. Now, we're still taking these gifts and everything from now till the end of the year. But we are pushing really close to where we want to get started. But we'll go till the end of the year, so we don't want anybody to give up. I mean, if you got some money you want to donate in the next 6 days, that's great. It pushes it. But this is just the first part of this campaign. The next ones will come until the end of the year. We would like to have all that money in our coffers before we even start. And like I said, I encourage people to go and see this and look at the beautiful site. The city was very kind to give us the land for $1 a year. And it's going to be so gorgeous there. And like I said, I mean, you have people on here that I have to call out a few of them. Craig Vaughn has done a huge amount of research on this. Wes Reeves, Gary Pittner, who is the person that's kind of leading this along with her. And that guy, he can we went for the proclamation at the city council. And
I
he
saw
was
that the other day,
He
yeah.
was rattling off dates and stuff, and I'm like, how do you remember that? I can't remember what today is. You
And
know?
this is
Like,
just
holy
kind of a
crap.
3D rendering, but this is
Yes.
going to be outside what would just be north of the Chamber of Commerce,
Yes.
right here in downtown Amarillo. I mean, it's literally a block
11th
and a
and
half away
Polk.
from here, 11th and
Yep.
Polk.
Yep.
And man, I think this is going to be a huge testament to,
Well,
I mean, from our paramedics, our firefighters, our police officers, our,
I just think it's a
Medical
fantastic
technicians,
opportunity that we have here to honor those people and the families that want to go and see the memorial or whatever. You don't have to go to Austin. We got one right here in Amarillo, Texas, that you can come and see it and sit at and remember your folks that have given that ultimate sacrifice. for
again,
us.
if you guys are looking to donate, I'm going to just bring this up onto the screen real quick.
Right.
Friends of AJ Swope, Texas Panhandle First Responders Memorial, 1608 South Washington. That's where you can take the checks to if you want to make an online donation. They make it simple. You just kind of click here, and it's going to take you to another page. You can enter the donation amount. You can pay through debit, PayPal, Venmo, however you want to do it. But at the end of the day, this is it's a good campaign. We've lost a lot of good men and women here on the High Plains, and the least that we can do is get something up and make sure that the community knows these names.
I knew several at the PD that have passed, but Paul worked for the sheriff's office, and he was there when he passed. And most people don't understand, you know, he died of a heart attack, but this was probably the very first push for what we want to call active shooter training. Mm-hmm. And so we were doing alert training, and they were doing this one down at WT. And so they would call one from our department, one from Amarillo PD, Canyon, and they all met at a certain time. Because the whole plan is you're not just going to be with your people. You're going to be running into other cops. So we want to learn how to act and work with that. And so Paul went down there to go do his little stint. He was out on patrol and went down there and had a massive heart attack that day while he was training for a first respond for a active shooters thing.
Yeah.
And so sorry about that.
No, you're good.
And so it was was just devastating to all of us, and we're so blessed to be able to have a place that he'll have a place here to be honored as well as down in Austin and stuff. So
Well, we appreciate it. There's going to be an opportunity for donor recognition. There's going to be a donor wall,
yes.
and go on. I highly encourage you. I mean, I can tell you the website, but just if you search in your Google Texas Panhandle First Responders Memorial, it'll take you there.
Right.
You can learn more about the project and everything else. I just want to thank you so much, Sheriff Thomas, for coming in, and thank you for being open about just kind of everything. You're from here's a kid from Amarillo that went from serving fish and chips
Yep.
to serving the community all those years ago, and a very long tenure, and what could be one of the longest tenures ever in Potter County. And so I think it's a testament. You did all that. You went back to school. You fought colon cancer.
That's
And now you're on another mission, and that's to make sure that these people are not forgotten.
You know, and I could not have done what I've done in my capacity, especially as sheriff, without the citizens. And so I'll never forget that.
Yeah.
I will never forget. They're the reason where I'm at today. It's not about me. It's about the guys that work there. I just happen to be the head cheese over there. And really, that's it. They do all the work. Those guys, I'm so blessed to have the people that I have working for us. And it is a tough job. And it gets tougher every year. It's in the almost 39 years I've been doing this. Whew, what a change I've seen.
Yeah,
You know?
you have seen. I mean, I think we could go on and just talk
gosh.
about some of the craziest
Yeah.
stories that you've ever been a part of. But
man.
we may have to save that for
Another
another
day.
episode of Let's Talk About It. Before we end, Sheriff Thomas, what is one thing that you hope that people take out of this interview and take out of who you are?
Well, you know, I'm just a guy. You know, people call me sheriff all the time, and I've told you the same thing. It's still Brian.
Yeah.
We've been friends a long time. Call me Brian. Sheriff is what I do. My name is still Brian. I'm very blessed to be able to say I'm the sheriff of Potter County, and I couldn't have done that without the people here. I will always remember that. because it wasn't me
Yeah.
that did that. It's the citizens that put me in there. And, you know, there's been days I'm done. I'm not doing this anymore. But I was also raised, you never quit. Finish it out. And I will finish it out. I've been doing
And that's
this.
scriptural too.
But, yes,
I mean, it's
it
finish
is.
finish the race.
That's right. And, you know, at the end of this term, I'll have 42 years in law enforcement. And it's time to go home and do things with my wife. She's been retired now for 3 years. And
She got a
going
jump start
4.
on you.
Yeah, she got a little head start on me. But, you know, let's go out and do things. I mean, I love going to the mountains and go fishing. I'm a part of a men's group, and we go up there every year to go fishing. 5 of us guys go up there and go fish, for a week. And so,
Hey, just promise me you and your wife will never stop baking and doing Christmas stuff. The stuff that you guys bring up around the holidays. We'll get a special delivery every so often from Sheriff Thomas.
we will still bring you something here. Most people probably don't realize, but we, for 32 years, my wife cooked Christmas dinner for every law enforcement officer that was working. And that went on for 32 years. I mean, she started in September, and we started at 11 o'clock on Christmas, and we went till 5 o'clock on Christmas, or the day after Christmas. And I mean, we served anywhere from 120 to down to 60. And they came in and sat around my table and broke bread with us. And that was, it was a lot of fun, but it's getting so hard to stay up
it's
all
hard.
night.
Well, it's hard to stay up all night. The prices have gone crazy. Everything, what it costs to feed a group of people. What is it that you make us though? There's this candy. What is that?
Christmas crack is what everybody calls it.
Yeah, that's not the official name, but that is
It's
what
just
they
a
call
kind
it
of
out there. It's
it's a brittle that she makes. And
I'm telling you,
yeah.
it is delicious. So thank your wife for that.
I will.
Thanks for just kind of hanging out and talking with me.
I
If you
appreciate the time.
if you got time, we'll have to come back in. I'm sure you're full of just all of these crazy police stories that I would love to dive into and just kind of get a hold of that.
Yeah.
Thank you for tuning in. And if you have somebody that you want me to talk to here on Let's Talk About It, make sure you email me ajustice@kmr.com. And that concludes another edition of Let's Talk About It. Thanks, Sheriff Thomas.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it very much.